sunrise, but the mangrove bay is not asleep. A small stingray is at large, searching for a mudflat on which to touch down. And there is much more. If by some miracle we could peer into every corner of the bay and see everything that is happening at this one moment in time, we would know that the mangrove bay is a marvel too great to fully understand. However, let us proceed with our story, for there is still much we can learn. A rock jetty in Florida's Biscayne Bay is full of commotion this bright morning. An octopus is no doubt searching for something to eat. A crab, maybe a small lobster. For this work, the octopus has 8 clever arms and a set of eyes far better than any lowly mollusk ought to have. In fact, many people wonder how a cousin of the clam could have eyes as good as a fish. Anyway, there she goes, exploring the sea grasses that surround her jetty. To begin understanding the world of Florida's southern bays, we must fly above them to study the islands, or keys, that run like a chain along the coast. By blocking the flow of salt water from the sea, these islands create the quiet lagoons that we call Biscayne Bay and Florida Bay. In ages past, the flow of fresh water from the mainland filtered through the mangrove swamps at the shoreline and helped lower the concentration of salt in the water. This was important to the life and health of the bays. But with the digging of freshwater canals that reduced the sheet flow from the Everglades, the bays became saltier. We don't know if the bays can survive this, but more than ever, we need to take a close look at this fragile world. We begin with the flower of the red mangrove tree bearing at its center a tiny fruit. As the fruit grows, we notice that already there is something sprouting out of it. How strange that the mangrove seed germinates while the fruit is still growing. By the time this propagule is ready to fall, it is the size of a pencil. Separation takes place just below the fruit, and what is revealed is a cone of tiny embryonic leaves. For a while, the propagule floats horizontally, going wherever the currents take it. This explains why the red mangrove has dispersed itself throughout the tropics of the world. In time, however, the waterlogged pencil touches down as if to write something on the bottom. Leaves soon sprout on the rooted plant, and from this humble beginning, a mangrove island may eventually form. The color yellow shows the coastal areas that are protected by mangrove trees. There are 3 species of mangroves, but the one with the big, looping prop roots that reach farthest into the water is the red mangrove. It is the first line of defense against storms. In 1992, Hurricane Andrew ravaged the mangroves of Biscayne Bay. They will take years to grow back. Today, we must visit Florida Bay to find mangroves in their prime. A mask and snorkel is all we need to explore the hidden world of mangroves. The roots are encrusted with living things. Most of what we see is animal life. Sponges, tunicates, and feather duster worms crowd together. Sea anemones are not rare. We find them gently waving their stinging tentacles. They have no brain and cannot see, but they can kill small prey. This is a place to live and breed. There is food and shelter in the mangrove maze. Swarms of minnows and many other fish, like the mangrove snapper, lay their eggs in this protected nursery. When they mature, some will move out to the coral reefs beyond the keys. Countless mangrove leaves grow and mature in the subtropical sun. They bring to the floor a bounty of nutrients. Some of the leaves are gathered by land crabs, which have discovered that positioning their burrows in the shade of the mangroves is a good idea. There, the crabs earn a cheap living, getting the food that falls upon their heads. They believe, like we do, that heaven is somewhere high above them. More often, the mangrove leaves drop directly into the water, staining it like tea and kicking off a chain of events that fuels nearly the entire ecosystem. First, a culture of fungus invades the leaves, breaking them down and also raising their protein value. Next, tiny isopods and amphipods munch up the leaf fragments, recycling them again and again through their bodies. As these crustaceans grow and reproduce, they become food for minnows and other predators. The lettuce sea slug cares nothing about the events we have just described. She doesn't eat mangrove leaves. She eats sea lettuce. In fact, she resembles a bit of lettuce herself. Like the octopus, the sea slug is a mollusk without a shell, but her eyes are only little black specks. She can't see clear images. Much of what the sea slug learns has to be done, ouch, the hard way. Now, clams aren't much fun, but what about the scallop? The scallop knows when you're poking around the mangroves, pearl blue eyes sticking out everywhere, and lots of tentacles. And there's something else very strange. The scallop can swim. A little blast of water and off you go. Most clams can't do this. If you don't like the side you've landed on, rimming the mangroves is a zone of calm water where the oxygen concentration is low. Here, looking like cauliflower gardens, we may find huge carpets of Cassiopeia, the upside-down jellyfish. Although it can swim, Cassiopeia has the habit of lying flat on its back. The secret to this is in the dark spoon-shaped fringes on the jellyfish's oral arms. Embedded in the spoons are algal cells that carry on photosynthesis. This provides food for the jellyfish and gives it a life of gentle rest. Mangroves are in the business of building land and creating islands. Often we find a mudflat forming on the lee side of a mangrove clump, and when the tide is out, shorebirds will gather there. The mud is full of worms and other invertebrates for them. Some shorebirds, like these dowitchers, have long bills for probing. The slow-motion camera helps reveal their technique. The ruddy turnstone fills a different niche on the mudflat. He flips things over to get what's hiding underneath. Vast mangrove swamps at the tip of the Everglades near Whitewater Bay are feeding grounds for wading birds in winter. Graceful herons follow schools of minnows that move through the brackish waters, and here in these great flocks, the high productivity of the mangrove estuary is dramatically displayed. Roseate spoonbills swish their flat bills from side to strain out shrimp, crabs, minnows, and other prey. The spoonbill's remarkable color comes from the crustaceans in their diet. In January, spoonbills are shuttling back and forth from their feeding grounds to the islands of Florida Bay. A single round trip may span 20 miles. The objects of this devotion are their hungry chicks tucked below the mangrove canopy. Spoonbill populations have suffered from the draining and filling of mangrove swamps and the decrease of fresh water flow into the remaining estuaries. Few have ever seen the American crocodile. He is the rarest of the rare, just a few hundred left in the U.S., and they're all in Florida Bay and Lower Biscayne. You might mistake him for an alligator, but notice his narrow snout and tan color. And then compare him with an alligator. The crocodile is a creature of the mangroves. He eats a lot of fish, but he will grab whatever comes his way. He is a master of surprise. Because the croc is so rare, a Norway rat exploring the very same mangrove clump may not know exactly what that is lying there. In a surprise move, crocodiles have set up a breeding ground in the cooling canals of the Turkey Point nuclear power plant on Biscayne Bay. At night, Joe Wasilewski and his research assistant comb the endless labyrinth looking for nests. What they usually spot, though, are the reflective eyes of the hatchlings already down by the water's edge.
Good. Okay, that could be all. Hold on. I got it. There you go. That could be all that we were lacking. Could be. On this nest.
The baby crocs have scrambled into a tangle of buttonwood branches. Joe begins to think that the mother might be close. The idea is unnerving. Is the mother going to react to them, catching her babies? There she is, not moving a muscle.
I just heard it. Well, she's right here.
The American crocodile is an endangered species. The babies that are caught are marked, measured, and let go. Many are recaught a year or two later, and when they are checked again, we get important information about their growth, their distribution, and their reproductive habits. Through this kind of research, it is hoped that we can better protect one of the rarest denizens of the mangrove swamp. Beyond the mangroves is the bay itself, hundreds of square miles of open water. On a windless summer day, the glassy sea is a dream. Water and sky blend at the horizon as if they were made of the same substance. As a biological habitat, the vast stretches of this world are dominated by turtle grass, and it is very productive. Fed by nutrients drifting out of the mangroves, it is even more productive than the mangroves themselves. Where the grass is healthy, life flourishes in all its potential. Many kinds of plants grow here, including this alga, the mermaid's wineglass. In some places, tides and currents whip up the turtlegrass world, making it wild and hard to study. In other spots, the vegetation is calm, and we have a chance to examine the strange fuzz coating these plants. What we discover are colonies of tiny hydroids, each polyp not too different from the large flower-like anemones we saw on the mangrove roots, each one reaching out for its own food. Other fuzz patches are really infestations of skeleton shrimps, too small to observe with the naked eye. It is not hard to imagine them as food for the immense numbers of fish that hatch here. We could fill a book with the different kinds of shrimp and other crustaceans that thrive in the turtle grass. Many are netted by trawlers at night. But no crustacean attracts more attention around Miami than the spiny lobster. When the lobster season opens in midsummer, everyone is out hunting these scavengers. Lobsters are protected in the national parks. The real problems facing our bays begin on land. The reduced flow of fresh water from the Everglades has caused the salt concentration in Florida Bay to nearly double. This may be the cause of the seagrass die-offs and algae blooms that we're seeing, especially in Florida Bay. A nurse shark fins through an unhealthy cloud of microscopic green algae. The city of Miami overlooks Biscayne Bay's subtle beauty and hidden treasures of life. For marine creatures, it is an unfortunate situation. Rainwater carries oil and other pollutants off the streets into the canals and right into the northern end of the bay. Furthermore, much of Miami's sewage is piped 3 miles out to sea. Some of it certainly drifts back. And what about the boats? What boater can claim he has not dragged his prop across the delicate seabed, stirring up silt and leaving an ugly scar? The evidence of this destruction can be seen by any diver or anyone who catches an aerial view of the bay. These tracks can take years to heal. The southern stingray must traverse this smitten world on his daily seagrass patrols. The ray is related to the shark, but there is nothing fearsome about his bite. Often we surprise a 4-foot stingray off the bottom where he's been mudding for worms. Then we can watch the most graceful swimmer on earth. Not graceful and not pretty to look at, the West Indian manatee lumbers around the mangrove bays searching for seagrass. There are fewer than 2,000 manatees in Florida, and their numbers are declining. The manatee is an endangered species. When we look closely at these mammals, we see something very sad. We see scars. The manatee is no match for the high-speed motorboats that fly across these waters. Manatees are so gentle and unafraid you can swim with them. They do not associate man with boat. To the manatee, they are separate beasts. Since manatees are mammals, they must breathe air. They have to come to the surface, and this puts them in harm's way. Manatees can rest on the bottom for many minutes, but sooner or later, they have to rise. The manatee is the largest herbivore around, but the prize for eating the most turtle grass goes to the variegated urchin. There are millions of them in the bay. Built like a hockey puck, the urchin has no arms or legs. Who needs them? The urchin is covered with tube feet. Tube feet are so coordinated that with them the urchin can hoist himself up into the turtle grass to feast on the tender blades. Brittle stars of various kinds are very common in the bay. Their legs are spindly and their movements kind of jerky, but they can cover a lot of ground in a short time. Purple-tipped anemones are scattered like posies through the turtle grass community. They seem benign, but looks can be deceiving. A lizard fish has blundered into the anemone's deadly grasp. The tentacles of the anemone fire out microscopic darts. Subdued, the fish will be stuffed into the anemone's mouth. Simple animals with stinging tentacles form a large group called the Cnidaria, which also includes the jellyfish and the corals. The finger coral is covered with a mass of living polyps, each having a mouth surrounded by 12 tentacles. Do you see that white stringy stuff in the grass? That's not a bunch of noodles. That's the spaghetti worm. The spaghetti worm itself is small and buried in the bottom, but his tentacles are a foot long. They can't sting, but each tentacle has rows of hair-like cilia that sweep tiny food particles along the tentacle and down into the worm's mouth. Time marches on in the turtlegrass world. The hunt is over. The octopus is back. But while she was gone, things changed around her den. There's a lump in there. A spider crab's too big to eat, but not smart enough to win this contest. In the wintertime, the mangrove islands that dot Florida Bay become nesting grounds for some of our most exciting raptors. Ospreys keep a watch on their golden-eyed chicks hunkered in a mangrove near Tavernier Creek. Ospreys are strict fish eaters. In the 1950s, when the pesticide DDT was used, ospreys declined sharply. With a ban on DDT, the birds rebounded nicely, but today the osprey population is slipping again. This may be due to falling fish populations in Florida Bay. A baby bald eagle adds little to the weight of its massive nest in a black mangrove on North Nest Key. For 2 months, the eagle develops slowly as down gives way to large, glossy feathers. A year later, 2 chicks have been raised and are there on this March day when a full-grown red-breasted merganser is brought in by the parent. While ospreys have been declining in recent years, the bald eagles have increased, and it may have something to do with the eagle's more varied diet. Eagles eat fish, turtles, birds, and even roadkills. In any case, things are going well for this once endangered species. One of the most unusual birds in the bay is the black skimmer. The skimmer's lower mandible is much longer than his upper, which makes the bill a unique fishing tool. The amazing skimmer slices a 100-foot incision with the steadiness of a surgeon. He takes whatever the sea places in his path. In the winter, flocks of skimmers wheel through the mangroves searching for schools of small fish. Choppy waters would seem to deter him, but the skimmer plows on. If the skimmer's way seems precarious, with the brown pelican, everything about him seems reckless and out of whack. Imagine having to catch your fish by plunging into 3 feet of water. The Florida Keys are more than stepping stones on the road to Key West. They are a place with a history. During the ice ages, when the sea level was higher, the Keys were a chain of tropical reefs. Then disaster struck. The climate grew colder, the polar ice caps expanded, and the sea level dropped, exposing the reefs to the air and killing them. Today, the remains of the ancient corals are clearly visible in the bedrock. Now the Keys are in human habitation. Nearly all the parcels of land on the water have been occupied. With its lush tropical look, there is no denying that the Keys are man's paradise. The improvement of Route 1 has increased the flow of tourists up and down the island chain. People come to the Keys because of the beguiling beauty of the sea and all the adventure and mystery that goes with it. Everywhere you look, sea life is displayed and depicted to satisfy visitors from landlocked cities who yearn for the feel of some place really new. Islands, palm trees, blue horizons, and warmth are more than enough to set frozen Midwesterners into a migration pattern that closely matches that of many birds. The Keys are so immersed in natural habitat that many animals we would consider wild and untamable have become used to man, and in some cases have taken on the demeanor of park pigeons. They hang around the busiest spots begging for handouts or simply going about their normal routines as if the people weren't really there at all. Because of their rich natural history, the Keys are also a center for dozens of important research projects. Today, scientists are studying water salinity, algae blooms, seagrass beds, coral reefs, and various rare and endangered species. One project is trying to find out why ospreys in Florida Bay are declining but bald eagles are not. In this work, blood samples from nestling birds are checked for mercury and other contaminants. Research is slow. In the meantime, US 1 is piping people down the island chain in increasing numbers and crowding out some of the Keys' native inhabitants. On several large and undeveloped parcels of pine and palmetto on Big Pine Key, the little key deer makes his final stand. The key deer looks like a miniature white-tailed deer, and that's exactly what he is. He is a separate race geographically isolated from his brothers on the mainland. Isolation and inbreeding have resulted in a smaller deer in the same way that humans have pygmy tribes. In the late afternoon, the little deer leave the woods and invade the housing developments on Big Pine Key. It is their evening routine to forsake the rough pine land in favor of the tender grasses of mowed fields. Some of the homeowners even put out food as if the deer were pets. Because of this strange alliance of deer and man, the toy deer have lost their fear of people. They don't think anything about walking onto busy roads. Each year, 30 to 40 deer are struck down by cars despite the lowered speed limits on Big Pine Key. That's about 10% of the entire key deer population, and there doesn't seem to be any way to stop it. As in the case of the manatee, something big has to change or this endangered animal will be lost forever. By midsummer, female sea turtles have made their annual journeys to the sandy beaches of the Keys. The turtles come ashore at night, and there, under the cover of darkness, they lay their eggs. A one-way set of tracks means there's a turtle on the beach, and chances are she's a loggerhead. If you are careful not to disturb her, you may see the female loggerhead drop 100 eggs into a carefully dug hole. You will see her shedding tears. It is her way of eliminating salt. "90% of the loggerheads in the Western Hemisphere nest on Florida beaches, some 60,000 nests each year. This is why it's important to keep our beaches undeveloped and our coastal waters unpolluted. The female loggerhead will never see her eggs or young. For 2 months, her eggs will incubate in the sand as the sun warms them. The temperature of each egg will determine the sex of its baby. It is late summer, and on this starry night, there is good news. Baby loggerheads are on the move. The dozen or so things that could have destroyed this nest did not. No dogs, no raccoons, no ghost crabs, no vehicles crushing the eggs. Good. Now the idea is to get to the ocean as quickly as possible, find a floating clump of something to hide in, and hope that the sea is merciful. 20 years from now, a 300-pound female from this brood may lay 100 eggs in the very same sand. At the end of the island chain is Key West, the southernmost town in the continental United States, incorporated in 1828. Strewn with flowering poincianas, Key West has a sunny West Indian flavor. Ernest Hemingway lived and wrote in this house. The surrounding sea was a great inspiration to the famous author, but so was a local tavern called Sloppy Joe's. Looking south from the southernmost point, we are only 90 miles from Havana. In recent years, refugees have escaped Cuba on homemade rafts, allowing the Gulf Stream to carry them to an uncertain freedom. If we were free to engage in a safer adventure, we would take a ship out of Key West Harbor heading on a westerly course. This voyage would take us past the Marquesas Islands, and at a distance of 68 miles, we would slip into the azure waters of Dry Tortugas National Park. Approaching the main island, we would pass the sun-drenched beaches of Bush Key, and then ahead of us, we could not help but spot the imposing facade of Fort Jefferson. Jefferson is one of many forts that were built to protect the American coastline. Construction started in 1846, but by the time work was halted 30 years later, the fort was outmoded for warfare. The six-sided structure is the largest brick fortification in the Western Hemisphere. It has over 2,000 arches. The walls are 50 feet high, 8 feet thick. The fine brickwork here goes beyond what we would expect. But much of it has started to crumble away. Fort Jefferson never got its full complement of cannon. Nevertheless, a furnace was built to heat cannonballs to a temperature sufficient to start fires on enemy ships, yet not a single shot was ever fired in anger from these halls. No ship ever attacked the fort. In 1861, Fort Jefferson became a Union prison, and in 1865, Dr. Samuel Mudd was incarcerated here. Mudd was a doctor who patched up John Wilkes Booth's leg after Booth assassinated President Lincoln. Mudd was later pardoned. From his cell, Dr. Mudd could see the fort's moat, but not the incredible sea life clinging to its outer wall. In the spring and fall, thousands of birds crossing the Gulf of Mexico drop into the Dry Tortugas to rest and feed. The birds come in such impressive variety that people flock to the islands to see them. In so doing, the bird watchers become a point of interest in themselves. Above the harbor light, you can often see magnificent frigate birds catching the thermals that rise up the face of the massive wall of the fort. Their bent and narrow wings span a surprising 7 feet. Some of the frigates roost on Bush Key, which is so close to the fort that you can stand atop the structure and watch their aerial maneuvers with a spotting scope. The Dry Tortugas are the only place in the continental United States where frigate birds raise their young. In the winter and spring, Bush Key is in a state of pandemonium. Tens of thousands of nesting terns have laid claim to the island as they do each year. Of the brown noddies alone, there are some 4,000 of these elegant birds nodding their velvety heads in courtship rituals. Despite the brown noddies and a few black noddies, Bush Key is best described as a sooty tern colony. In season, there are some 100,000 sooties on the island, making this the largest sooty tern nesting colony in North America. The female sooty lays a single egg in a depression in the bare sand, and often she squeezes in so closely to her neighbors that she can only maintain her territory by constant fighting. The sooty tern feeds her lone chick a diet of fish and squid, snatched from the surface of the sea. 3 miles east of the Keys, out toward the ocean, is a scattered line of living coral reefs. They are the only living reefs in the continental United States, a national treasure protected by parks and sanctuaries. As we approach the reef, a school of reef squids scoots by. If we are careful, we can get within a few feet of them. Squids are big-eyed swimmers related to the octopus. Over here, by the sea floor, the little yellow stingray ripples along. Yellow stingrays are also found in the bay, but because they prefer a sandy bottom, we find more of them here. We get a good look at them in the clear ocean water replenished continually by the currents. All around the edge of the coral reef is a junkyard of sand and coral rubble. It is the work of storms, parrotfish, and other destructive forces. This pebbly wasteland is the habitat of choice for the yellowhead jawfish, and there you will invariably find her working on her burrow. The little jawfish is a fastidious housekeeper, always designing and redesigning, shaping and reshaping the details of her home. She can see something wrong in the precise placement of a coral chunk, and then she must nose it, poke it, and nudge it into place. The reefs stretch over the sand like great crusty gardens. These gardens are here because two things are right for the growth of corals: water that is clear and water that is warm. The reef is also helped by nutrients that wash seaward from the mangrove swamps and turtle grass beds. Colors are brilliant on the reef, but the most vivid colors can only be seen in shallow water. Reds, for example, disappear completely at 25 feet. The rough file clam is a striking beauty, but if you cause a commotion, don't expect this clam to stick around for long. The most important part of the reef is its underlying structure of hard coral that gives it shape and creates a catacomb of hiding places. Fast-growing elkhorn coral grows up to 4 inches a year and can repair quickly when it is ravaged by storms. Intricate staghorn coral is a good place for fish to dart when predators show up. Brain corals, like other hard corals, are built up slowly by colonies of polyps that secrete limestone cups to protect themselves. The polyps put out their tentacles at night to feed. The shrubs of the coral garden are the gorgonians, the so-called soft corals. that can flex and wave. These sea fans and sea rods are colonies of polyps that feed in the daytime, and while the tentacles of hard corals are smooth, those of soft corals are finely branched. Gorgonians attract candy-colored schools of bluehead wrasse that feed on the tender coral polyps. The yellow members of the delicate school are normal males and females that mate together in groups. The big blueheads are terminal phase supermales that mate with single females. Among the sea rods, you will find the trumpet fish trying to blend in. Sometimes you'll see him standing on his head. Plenty of little fish have fallen for this ploy and have been sucked into his weird telescopic mouth. Like the trumpet fish, many of the reef fish are highly specialized to ensure their own survival. The smooth trunkfish is a weak swimmer, but to compensate for this, he is enclosed in a box of armored plates, and he secretes a poison that can kill predators. Normally, the balloonfish looks like this. Strange, but not that strange. When he gets excited, though, the balloonfish becomes something a predator would not want to swallow. The squirrelfish is a big-eyed hunter of the night. His spines are a threat, too. The blue tang has a concealed weapon. The thin yellow sheath at the base of his tail hides a deadly barb used to slash intruders. Blue tangs sometimes travel in large, shimmering schools. The teeth of the parrotfish are fused into a beak for biting off algae. Each bite, however, also takes out a chunk of coral. Parrotfish erode the reef by turning it into sand. The French angelfish lets you get very close. He has a small mouth for nibbling sponges and a flat body for slipping into crevices. What is so surprising about the French angel is how different the juvenile fish looks. You would think it was a different species. One of the reef's most beautiful denizens is the queen angel. She gets her name from the little circular crown on the nape above her eyes. She is a living jewel who is usually found alone. Some fish gather into great schools. Many fish that live here are raised in the nurseries of the mangrove bay, but others hatch on the reef. Like a blizzard of snowflakes, fish larvae swarm the reef. By the time the larvae have grown into minnows, their numbers will have been thinned by predators and then thinned again as they become full-size fish. Like flocking birds, each minnow in the school has a better chance escaping from predators, like this sleek pair of barjacks. The 6-foot green moray is a lie and wait kind of predator. The eel's green color comes from the yellow mucus coating his blue skin. Raised on the turtle grass flats, the barracuda is a fearsome predator who cruises the reef preying on fish. Many people argue about how dangerous the barracuda is. Be careful if he seems too curious or gets too close. His mood changes and his behavior is a mystery to us. In this way, he is like many animals in the sea. There's a lot we don't know about our mangrove bays and brilliant blue coasts, but we do know enough to place a high value on them. We know that many are the rare creatures that live there, and that we live perilously close to the whole magnificent realm. It falls upon us to ensure a bright future for for this slice of the subtropics by the windward and leeward shores of the Florida Keys.